Autumn poured itself through the ballroom's towering panes, not as a flood, but in careful bands. Gold running over marble, like paint tipped from a brush. The Grandview's most private hall always looked theatrical, yet today it seemed intent on upstaging its own guests. Maple leaves outside rehearsed their descent in copper and rust. Inside, light found every surface that could sparkle. Glassware chimed as servers nested flutes on trays. A piano waited, lid raised like a quiet yawn. Butterflies, dozens of them in sugared violet, perched on a 3-tier cake, so precise they looked ready to lift off and abandon the frosting. In a pocket of sun where the floor warmed like a hearthstone, 8-year-old Astrid Montgomery balanced on a velvet ottoman. Her purple backpack, scuffed, stickered, fiercely loved, rested against her shins. She traced the wings of a butterfly decal with one fingertip, then bent to her sketchbook. Pencil lines gathered into a swarm, thorax, vein, curve, repeat. The focus narrowed her face into something unbreakable. The room had rules and an agenda. Her drawing had neither. It had flight. Across the space, Serena Montgomery stood as if the doorway were a podium and posture were a contract. 12 hours of decisions hid beneath an immaculate jacket and the kind of stillness that earns silence in boardrooms. 32. Self-made. A valuation the size of a small planet orbiting her name. None of that protected the tiny nerve that flickered when she looked at her daughter and wondered whether today would hold. Her phone, a metronome for anxiety, lit again. The schedule Mara had sent glowed with bulletproof certainty. 3:15, Aurora Labs reps. 3:30, cake. 3:45, remarks. Candid photos to follow. They want texture, Mara had said in the planning call. The authentic kind. Timeline confirmed. Mara breathed now, materializing at Serena's elbow with a tablet hugged to her suit. Aurora will arrive on the dot. We'll pivot you to the cake, then your short speech. Photographer's brief is tender, unposed mother-daughter. Their CSR team is salivating. It's my child's birthday, not a product launch, Serena said, even as her eyes stayed on the checklist like a ship's captain tracking the weather. Of course, Mara replied, calm as a clinic. And $10 million loves a good candle. She toggled to another line item. Our interpreter should be. About that. A gravity settled in Serena's stomach. The text from 20 minutes ago pulsed in memory. Emergency, can't make it, deepest apologies. She hadn't told Mara. Not yet. Not when the word plan hung over them like stained glass. We may not need an interpreter, Mara continued brightly, not yet sensing the gap under her feet. Astrid can wave when you call her up. Children and microphones are catnip. We'll keep it light. At the far side of the ballroom, a drummer tapped out a sound check. The bass shivered through the floors and into the cake stand, and the fondant butterflies quivered like a field in a breeze. Astrid flinched, hands flying to her ears, the zipper of the backpack catching her knuckles as she pulled it close. Serena took one involuntary step toward her. The urge to cross the room lived in her bones. She doesn't just wave, Serena said, voice low. But Mara had already pivoted, smile locked in place, as she routed a nod of arriving board members toward artisanal lemonade and strategic greetings. Laughter pinged off stone and crystal. The room filled with the soft machinery of power. Introductions, a little boasting disguised as curiosity. Children in tailored outfits already negotiating the laws of cake proximity. Astrid retreated, skirts of chatter billowing around her. The backpack became a shield. The zipper's tiny metal tongue slid forward, back, her own tempo in the growing noise. The MC approached Serena, all polish and practiced impulse. Program looks terrific, he said, voice tuned to fill spaces without becoming a shout. Where should we slot your daughter's words? Children adore the mic. She won't be speaking, Serena answered. The muscle under her eye twitched, a familiar tell. A blink, then recovery. Of course. Perhaps you could share what she might say. Serena didn't finish the thought that rose. She says 1,000 things. You just don't listen to how she says them. The ballroom did what ballrooms do. Inflated expectation. Her chest felt tight, the way it did when an investor mistook decisiveness for lack of softness, or when a teacher mistook silence for absence. Across the room, a woman in pearls approached Astrid with a benevolent smile worn like perfume. She waggled her fingers inches from the girl's face. "Hello, sweetheart. Are you having fun?" Astrid recoiled, gaze skittering toward the exit signs as if they were stars she could use to navigate. Serena's instinct snapped taut. She angled toward them. Mara slipped in front like a turnstile. "Aurora's here," she murmured. "They'd love a personal hello." The phrase personal hello sounded like a door politely closing. The Aurora team came with the air of people who have never waited for a table. Their suits carried cities in the seams. Mara shifted into configuration mode, handshakes, badges, a laugh that hit the right decibel. Serena took her part in the choreography, nodding through talk of markets and pilots and family-forward culture. But her eyes kept finding the warm slice of sunlight where Astrid was shrinking into herself 1 millimeter at a time. A text badge flashed in Serena's mind again, interpreter unavailable. 3 simple words that reopened every hallway of doubt. How many times had the world demanded that Astrid translate herself into something easier? How many times had Serena let the world set that price? "Quick check," the MC said, sidling back, mic now a talisman in his hand. "We'll do a little backstory. Your founding myth, the garage, the first big break. Then invite the birthday girl up for a wave. Everyone will melt." Melt. As if emotion were a garnish. Serena tucked her phone away. "We'll see," she said, which was the kind of sentence that kept options alive. The pianist sent a bright glissando across the room. The drummer answered with a warmer thump. Astrid's shoulders rose to her ears. The light in the room shifted half an inch toward theatrical. The butterflies on the cake watched the crowd, restless. Serena slipped along the margin of guests, edging toward her daughter. She was stopped twice. Once by a founder who wanted to name-drop parody as a strategy. Once by a well-wisher who told her how inspiring the juggle must be. Her smile was technically correct. She kept moving. Closer now. Astrid, knees tucked, gaze narrowed to a seam in the marble, as if there were a path inside it. The backpack's zipper gleamed with each small pull. Serena pressed a palm to her own sternum, the way she does before going on stage, and drew a slow breath. Words assembled behind her teeth, the simple ones she knew, the ones she'd practiced at home when no one was looking. Hello. Happy. Proud. Clumsy, but true. Serena, Mara called softly, catching her sleeve. One more thing. She angled her tablet, so the email's subject lines stared back. Timeline adherence, deliverable moments, reconsidering investment pending outcome. The meaning was clean and cold. They want the together shot, Mara added. You Astrid, a small gesture. It matters. What matters is that my daughter can enjoy her own party, Serena said. The sentence tasted new. She wasn't sure yet if it would hold under pressure. The band's bass rolled another test note across the floor. Astrid's hands flew up again, breath shortening. Serena looked at the stage. Spots angled to capture triumph, a mic stand set at her height, cables that would snake into every photo. She looked at the cake, a masterpiece built to be sliced at the moment branding required. She looked at her daughter, the only timeline that counted. 3 minutes, the MC announced to no one and everyone, voice warming up. We'll gather around the cake, and oh, perfect. Our photographer has found the light. Conversations crested. Servers performed their small ballet, pivoting through clusters of silk ties and bright bows. A board member leaned toward Serena with a conspiratorial grin. Don't worry, he said. It'll all come together on stage. On stage. The word clanged. Serena pictured all the rooms where she'd won by conforming to expectations she had outgrown. She pictured the one person in this building for whom the stage was not a triumph, but a trap. And she pictured the empty space between what she wanted to be and what she was still doing. A hush moved over the crowd's surface, thin as tissue, but there. Someone had opened the service entrance. A rectangle of cooler light fell across the marble, cutting the glow in two. The room's attention flickered briefly, the way attention does when something unscripted tilts the air. Serena turned toward the door. A man in a flannel shirt stepped in, carrying a box wrapped in handmade paper, where watercolor butterflies drifted across white. Beside him, a boy in a stickered ball cap bounced on his feet, eyes wide not with awe, but with an explorer's cheer. Look, a new map. They didn't belong to any guest list Mara had color-coded. They didn't belong to the choreography at all. For an instant the ballroom paused, like a breath caught between question and answer. And then, everything that was supposed to happen waited. The door from the service corridor closed behind them with a soft click, but the impact was louder than the drummer's warm-up. A man and a boy, neither polished nor poised for the kind of room they just entered, stood just inside the threshold. The man's flannel shirt looked like it had been worn for work that mattered more than photographs, and his jeans had the kind of wear that came from actual use. He carried a box, small enough to cradle in one arm, wrapped in handmade paper, so delicate it seemed in danger of dissolving under the ballroom lights. The paper was covered in painted butterflies, lavender and violet, each wing unique. The boy at his side practically vibrated with energy. He was maybe 7, though the easy confidence in his eyes suggested a comfort in moving through unfamiliar spaces. His cap was covered in stickers, rockets, dinosaurs, planets, and, most noticeably, a purple butterfly that matched the ones on Astrid's backpack exactly. That detail pulled Serena's attention like a hook. They weren't on the guest list. She knew every name, every RSVP. This room was a carefully cultivated ecosystem, and strangers were rare species. But something about them, especially the way they didn't rush to claim space, kept her from signaling for security or scanning for Mara. A server approached, unsure, balancing professionalism with the instinct that these two didn't fit the template. "Can I help you?" The words hovered between invitation and removal. The man nodded toward the box. "Delivery, from Whimsy Wishes." His voice was steady, unhurried. Mrs. Chin wanted to make sure the birthday girl got her lamp in person. Serena caught the faint glow through the tissue lining, purple light pooling softly, the way dusk lingers before night commits itself. She knew the shop. Astrid loved its creations. The butterflies Mrs. Chun made from blown glass and colored filament weren't toys. They were small universes you could hold in your hands. The server hesitated, eyes flicking to Mara, who was deep in a conversation with Aurora executives. Quarterly growth curves and overseas expansion were flowing around her like champagne. The server's uncertainty was a pause, and in that pause, something shifted. The boy had already spotted Astrid. He didn't run to her. He didn't shout a greeting or try to close the distance too fast. Instead, he stopped just far enough away that she could look at him without feeling cornered. He tapped the brim of his cap, pointed to the butterfly sticker, then pointed to hers. Simple. No words. An offering. Astrid's fingers froze on her backpack zipper. Slowly, she looked up. The eye contact was brief, but her gaze lingered on the match between his butterfly and hers. She pointed to her own sticker, then to his, mirroring him exactly. The smallest smile tugged at her mouth, tentative, but real. The boy turned to his father and signed something with quick, practiced hands. Serena's breath caught. She recognized it, not the meaning, but the language. American Sign Language, fluent and casual, as if his hands had been speaking longer than his voice. The man's face softened at his son's words. He lowered himself to one knee, meeting Astrid's line of sight without encroaching. His hands moved, slower now. "Hello. Happy birthday." Astrid's whole expression changed. Her spine straightened. The wariness in her eyes melted into focus. Her hands lifted from the backpack and began to sign in return, rapid and full of precision. It was a rush, 3 days' worth of stored thoughts tumbling out at once. The man laughed, a warm sound that seemed to bend the air around him. He signed back, careful, deliberate. "Slow down. I'm still learning." Then he added aloud, for the benefit of the crowd that had begun to notice. "She says she likes your butterfly. She wants to know if you've seen any real ones today," the boy added in his voice, translating with a casual accuracy that made it clear he'd been doing this all his life. A murmur moved through the small audience that had gathered. The woman in pearls, who had tried earlier to win Astrid over with volume and proximity, blinked and said, "Oh, she's using sign language. I thought she was just—" She trailed off, cheeks pink. "Just what?" the man asked gently, still keeping his eyes on Astrid. The woman hesitated, then finished weakly. "Communicating differently than I expected. That's one way to put it," he said, and signed something small that made Astrid laugh, a silent, breathy laugh Serena hadn't seen in weeks. Serena finally moved closer, closing the space between them. "I'm Serena," she said, extending her hand. "Astrid's mother." "Finn," he replied, shaking it. "And this is Leo. We really were just here to drop off the gift." But Leo saw the butterflies, and, well, kids have their own rules for introductions. "You sign," Serena said. It came out half as a question, half as a revelation. "My sister's deaf," Finn explained. "I learned when we were kids. I'm rusty now, but Leo's kept it sharp. We chat with her over video every week." By now, Leo and Astrid had settled onto the carpet, facing each other, their hands a blur of motion. Every so often Astrid would correct one of Leo's signs, her expression flickering between teacher's patience and 8-year-old smugness. The purple butterfly on Leo's cap caught the light and scattered it over Astrid's hair like pieces of amethyst. "They're talking about butterflies," Finn said quietly, amusement in his tone. "Apparently your daughter has strong opinions about wing-to-body ratios." Serena's shoulders eased, the knot between them loosening for the first time all afternoon. She's been researching them for a school project. It's become her thing. "Leo's the same with dinosaurs," Finn replied. "Last week he corrected a museum guide about pterodactyls." In sign. The poor woman just smiled and nodded. Serena glanced toward the stage, where the MC was still chatting with the sound tech, toward Mara, who was scanning the room like a conductor preparing the downbeat, and then back to her daughter, who was lit from the inside in a way no schedule, no corporate deal, no branding initiative could produce. For the first time that day, she thought, this is what a birthday should look like. The crowd's energy shifted as the party's machinery clicked into a higher gear. The MC was drifting toward the cake, microphone in hand, wearing that well-rehearsed, let's make magic grin. Mara was threading her way between guests with the precision of a diplomat in heels, her tablet glowing like a tiny command center. Somewhere in the middle of it all, an Aurora Labs executive raised a phone to capture the key moment that, according to every email, would secure a $10 million investment. Serena could feel the pressure building. It wasn't loud exactly, though the bass from the band still throbbed through the marble floor. It was the texture of the moment, the silent countdown of other people's expectations. She'd felt it in boardrooms, in investor dinners, in every photo op she'd been coached through. It was the feeling that told you, perform now, or lose something you can't get back. Mara appeared at her elbow without warning. "We're 5 minutes out from cake." Her voice was all polish, but her grip on the tablet had tightened. "Aurora CEO is watching the live stream from Hong Kong. He wants to see you and Astrid together. Even just a wave will sell the image." Serena's eyes cut toward the stage. The spotlights were already angled for her, the mic stand adjusted to her height. She could see the clean framing of the money shot in her mind, mother and daughter, perfect composition, proof that Serena Montgomery was not only a brilliant CEO, but also the picture of maternal connection. Astrid, however, sat cross-legged on the floor beside Leo, her hands darting through the air in fast, fluid conversation. Her whole body was engaged in the exchange, head tilts, micro-expressions, a small laugh now and then. And she was calm. No arms clamped over her ears, no shrinking into her backpack. Bring her up there and we lose this, Serena thought. And the thought was sharper, more certain, than any projection or market analysis she'd ever made. The MC sidled up, mic low, but still radiating showmanship. "I've got a beautiful intro prepared. We'll highlight your story, then invite Astrid to join us." Just a wave, a smile. "No," Serena said before she could stop herself. The MC blinked, smile faltering for a second. "No." "She doesn't just wave," Serena replied. Mara's voice came quick, urgent. "Serena, Think about what's at stake. We've been building toward this moment all day. She glanced at Astrid, then back at Serena. It's 5 minutes on stage. That's all. 5 minutes. The same phrase specialists had used about therapy exercises Astrid hated. The same phrase teachers had used about school assemblies that left her trembling. 5 minutes in a room tuned for someone else's comfort could feel like an hour of static. Serena's gaze shifted to Finn, who had been watching without intruding. You could do the speech without her, he said gently. Let her stay where she's happy. She's right here, Mara insisted. It's about together. Aurora needs to see you balance career and family. Balance, Serena repeated in her head, the word tasting like a lie. What balance was there in forcing her daughter into a spotlight that felt like a searchlight? The MC stepped forward, addressing the guests. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to celebrate young Astrid Montgomery. 8 years old. Serena interrupted automatically. 9, he corrected with an easy grin. The correction hit her like a bucket of cold water. He didn't even know her child's age. He was about to sell a moment that wasn't real. And for the first time, Serena saw the entire plan for what it was, a performance for other people's benefit. Her decision snapped into place. Change of plans, she said, her voice pitched to cut through the buzz. Mara looked horrified. Serena, we're doing this differently. She turned to Finn. How do you sign happy birthday? He raised an eyebrow, reading her in an instant. You want to sign it? I want everyone to sign it, she said. No music, no microphones. Just hands. Mara's mouth opened and closed, searching for the corporate-safe argument that could stop her. That's not what Aurora. They want authentic family moments, Serena cut in. Then let's give them something authentic. Finn's grin was quick, but there was a flash of respect in it. All right, I'll teach them. The MC, disarmed but curious, stepped back. Guests turned, drawn to the shift in energy. The hum of conversation thinned. The band stopped mid-phrase. Happy, Finn said, showing the upward brushing motion from chest to shoulders. Birthday, he continued, middle finger touching chin, then chest. You, pointing toward Astrid. Leo moved beside him, demonstrating each sign with a kind of clarity only a child can muster when they know they're the expert. One by one, the guests followed. Even the woman in pearls focused intently on her hand shapes, her earlier awkwardness fading. The board member, known for his impatience, repeated the sequence over and over until he had it right. The lights dimmed at Serena's request, and the candles on the cake bloomed in the dusk. The ballroom felt different, quieter, softer. And for the first time that day, Serena's heart matched the pace of the moment. Ready? Finn asked. 50 pairs of hands lifted, and together they began to sign. The ballroom held its breath. 50 sets of hands moved in unison, tracing meaning through the air. Happy birthday to you. Some were graceful, others hesitant, but the rhythm was shared. The flicker of the cakes. Candles threw shadows of moving fingers across the walls, ghost butterflies in flight. Astrid's eyes darted around the room, taking it in. Her gaze landed on Serena's hands, clumsy but determined, and a smile broke over her face. A real one, the kind that reached her eyes and didn't care who was watching. By the final verse, she was signing too. Confident. Teaching, without words, her movements crisp and sure. When everyone pointed at her name, she laughed, a small, breathy sound Serena hadn't heard in public for months. The room stayed quiet, sensing applause would shatter whatever had just bloomed. Serena knelt beside her. Make a wish, she signed. The motions were slow, a little awkward, but heartfelt. Astrid closed her eyes, face bathed in candlelight, then blew out the flames with one decisive breath. Smoke curled upward, a thin ribbon disappearing into the ballroom's height. It should have ended there, with a rare magic of mutual understanding still intact. But the party's machinery didn't know how to stop. The band, unsure of their role in this new script, began to ready themselves for the next set. A sharp crack from the drummer's snare ripped through the quiet like a gunshot. Astrid flinched, so hard she nearly knocked over a chair. Her hands flew to her ears, her shoulders hunched. The joy vanished as fast as it had come. Leo's head snapped toward her, concern etched across his face. He signed something quick to his father. She's sensitive to sudden amplified sound, Finn said softly to Serena. The echo in here makes it worse. Serena knew this. She'd always known this. But she'd spent years convincing herself Astrid could adjust. That therapy and exposure would make her fit into rooms like this. Seeing her daughter now, shrinking in on herself, the truth was a knife. Maybe the world needed to adjust instead. Astrid stood abruptly, clutching her backpack like a shield, and bolted toward the side exit. The butterfly sticker Leo had given her earlier slipped off in the rush, landing on the marble floor. The spell broke. Conversation swelled again, glasses clinked. Someone laughed too loudly. The photographer remembered his job and began snapping pictures of crumbs and champagne flutes. The Aurora executives were already looking at their phones. I should go after her, Serena said. Mara appeared instantly, holding out her phone like a lifeline. You can't leave now. The Aurora CEO is calling in 3 minutes for a personal debrief. This is the pivot point, Serena. Everything we've worked for. Serena looked toward the door Astrid had fled through, then at Mara's extended phone. The choice was a vice tightening around her ribs. I'll go, Finn said quietly. You don't have to, Serena replied. It's what decent people do, he said simply. Before she could answer, Finn had scooped up the drop sticker and nodded for Leo to follow. They slipped out through the same side door. The service corridor beyond the ballroom was a different world. Lit in dim industrial green from the emergency signs, smelling faintly of dish soap and cold air from the delivery bay. The sound from the party was muffled here, like music heard from underwater. It didn't take long to find her. Astrid had wedged herself into the corner beside a door labeled employees only. Knees pulled to her chest, backpack tight against her. She stared at the floor like she could vanish into it. Finn stopped a few feet away, respecting her space. Leo sat cross-legged nearby, close enough to be a presence, far enough to let her breathe. They waited. Gradually, Astrid's breathing slowed. Her shoulders eased down a fraction. She glanced at Leo, then Finn. Too loud, she signed. Too many sounds at once. Finn nodded, signing back, I know. Leo added his own hands to the conversation. When sounds hurt my ears, Dad says it's okay to find quiet places. They sat in stillness after that. 3 people fluent in the truth that sometimes the best comfort is simply not pushing. The hum of the emergency exit sign was constant, but it was gentle, tolerable. After a while, Astrid signed, Mom will be upset. I ran for my party. Mom will understand, Finn replied. She loves you. She wanted me to be normal today, for the important people. Finn considered her for a long moment. You are normal. You're normal. That's the only one that matters. Leo smoothed out the butterfly sticker in his hands. It was creased now, imperfect. He offered it to her. Butterflies fly away sometimes, he said aloud. But they come back. Astrid examined the wrinkled wings, then pressed the sticker onto her backpack beside its twin. 2 butterflies now, one perfect, one weathered. Both beautiful. Back in the ballroom, Serena stood with the phone pressed to her ear, nodding at all the right beats, while Aurora's CEO spoke in polished sound bites about inclusive culture and brand alignment. Her mouth formed words of agreement, but her mind was elsewhere, in a dim service corridor where her daughter sat in green-tinged light with a creased butterfly sticker and 2 people who didn't care about optics. When the call ended, Mara began talking about next steps and follow-up touchpoints, but Serena had already turned toward the door. Her heels tapped against marble, then dulled to tile, then muted entirely on industrial carpet. She found them quickly. Astrid looked up when Serena appeared, her face hesitant, as though unsure which version of her mother had come. Serena didn't hesitate. She slipped off her shoes, crossed the last few feet barefoot, and sat down beside her daughter on the cold floor, designer dress pooling around her. She lifted her hands, fingers shaping the awkward signs she'd just learned. I'm sorry. Too loud. Should have been your party. For the words she didn't know, she spelled them out slowly, clumsily. Astrid studied her for a long beat. Then she crawled into her lap, something she hadn't done in over a year. Serena wrapped her arms around her and felt the knot in her chest loosen for the first time in months. Against her chest, Astrid signed, "I wish people could hear my quiet words." Serena pulled back so she could see her daughter's face. "What if we teach them?" She signed. "What if we make places where your quiet words are the loudest ones?" "Promise?" "Promise," Serena replied, and meant it. They sat in the green-lit stillness, the hum of the exit sign overhead, while Finn and Leo waited nearby, without intruding. Leo leaned toward Astrid, signing something about dinosaurs and butterflies. Astrid signed back with a shy smile, and the two of them fell into their own hybrid language. Half ASL, half invented gestures only they understood. "She's inviting us for butterfly pancakes tomorrow," Leo translated for his dad. "We only know how to make dinosaur ones," Finn said. "Then you'll learn," Serena told him, surprising herself with the warmth in her voice. They didn't rush to return to the ballroom. When they finally did, the party had shifted. Guests were trickling out, some stopping to ask Finn about sign language classes. The woman in pearls handed Serena a business card. "My granddaughter's deaf," she said quietly. "Today made me realize what I've been missing." By the windows, Astrid and Leo stood silhouetted against the city's first lights, hands moving in steady conversation. The rhythm looked like a dance, unrehearsed, instinctive, entirely their own. Serena turned to Finn. "Thank you for everything." "We just delivered a gift," he said. But they both knew the lamp in its paper wrapping wasn't the only one. The hotel lobby smelled faintly of rain when they parted. Leo was already yawning, his head dropping onto Finn's shoulder with absolute trust. Astrid was talking about tomorrow's pancake shapes, her hands sketching them midair. In the car, she sat in the back, tracing new signs against the fog window. Each one left a brief print before fading. Temporary, perfect. "Mom," she signed when Serena caught her eye in the rearview mirror. "Yes? Today people saw me." Serena reached back and squeezed her hand. "Yes," she signed. "They saw you." Outside, the city blurred past, streetlights catching on the twin butterflies on Astrid's backpack, one perfect, one wrinkled. Inside, Serena thought about quiet Fridays at her company, about offices with spaces that fit her daughter's comfort, not the other way around, about learning not just the words, but the pauses and expressions that gave them life. Astrid kept practicing signs as they drove, creating new combinations, inventing language from motion and meaning. Serena watched her in the mirror and realized her daughter was not fragile. She was a butterfly in migration, resilient, tireless, carrying her own map. Tomorrow there would be pancakes, new words, and two children building a friendship in the space between silence and sound. But tonight, there was just this, a mother and daughter speaking the same language for the first time, their hands moving in the glow of passing lights.